ADHD, all those things that we kind of see present in that community have been correlated to being in close proximity to major roadways. And so for a very long time, the EPA has been recommending that we not do that practice. And so now we're in a place where we're going to be actually taking the viaduct down. So it's a good time to address how we can resolve some of those issues when it comes to impacting schools near major roadways. I think it goes without saying that it disproportionately impacts children of color. We just recently put out a study. There are 464 schools currently in New York State that are near major roadways, and 80% of them are Black or Latinx. And then the remaining 20% are low-income communities. And so there's really a disparate impact when we're talking about who's affected by major roadways such as I-81 and school-age children who their academic achievement and their physical achievement is going down. So I'll get a little bit more into the actual nuts and bolts of the I-81 project. And also, please, if you have any questions, like I'm okay with like you chiming in or raising your hand or going through Montanet and just asking a question as we're going along through the slides, just in case you want to make sure you don't forget it. I have a slide presentation here, so I won't forget where I'm at, but so feel free to interrupt me if need be. So something that I just want to talk a little bit about the I-81 project. And so when you're thinking about the I-81 project, they are required by law to do a couple things. The first thing they have to do is abide by a law called NEPA, which is the National Environmental Policy Act. Now, you hear the word environmental, so I don't want you to automatically think trees and birds and bees. Environmental actually means social, economic, and character of neighborhood. So all of those things are included in the environmental impact. It's designed to make sure that humans and nature can live together cohesively. And so they are required to say, how is this project going to impact the economy? How is this project going to impact the character of the community that we're going to be in? How is this project going to impact the people who live there? And then they're also required to do the traditional environmental stuff, like how is it going to impact the endangered birds or whatever else is going on in that community. And so through that process, they're required to have a set of public hearings. And so you may have heard a lot about these public hearings that DOT is having. It's because they're required to by law. So they're supposed to, by law, create a plan, put that plan out to the community, have a set of public hearings to allow the public to be able to weigh in on what they're proposing. The community is always the best place to start because we know what we want in our community. So it's really important that we show up to those public hearings. One, if we don't show up, then we're not putting them on notice that we have an issue. So the very first thing you want to think about is why would I waste my time, or why would I want to go to a public hearing? Because at the very least, they have to know you have an issue if you want to actually get something done about it. So the public hearing is a time where you express your concerns. You can do that either through calling them directly, emailing them, or showing up to a public hearing. At any point in time, they're all equally the same. So if you don't want to leave your house, you can shoot them an email. If you want to call them, call them. If you want to show up to a public hearing and speak on the mic, then you can do that too, but just make sure you're getting involved. I have a video here. I think I'll skip it because it's like 2 minutes. I'll skip that. So what were the impacts of the original build? You'll see the before picture, the before gray picture. Hopefully you can see that it was a very residential community, high density community. It was very, very populated. 90% of the Black people in Syracuse lived in that one area that you see marked off in the red. And then there is the after effect. So then you can see how detrimental this was to the Black community. And you'll see all those buildings that we recognize every day, and you may not have any idea that at some point they were homeowners, and they were Black homeowners who resided there that are no longer there. And I think worth pointing out in that diagram to the right is there's 22 parking lots there. So you take that as you will. So let's talk a little bit about what the DOT has concluded as a part of their analysis that they have been working on for 10 years. I want to give a caveat that we have seen the preliminary draft environmental impact statement. However, the draft environmental impact statement should be coming out this summer. So all this information is based on their most recent draft that they put out publicly, which was summer of 2019. So the most detrimental, in our opinion, the most detrimental conclusion that the DOT has drawn is that the community will not be impacted by construction. And so why is that detrimental? They've done their research, they looked at the footprint, and they said, we can do this project without impacting anyone as a result of it. That conclusion means that they're not obligated to avoid, lessen, or mitigate any consequences to the construction project. That's why it's detrimental, right? Because once they recognize, wait, we might impact this community, then they're required to look at mitigation strategies, right? And so you all may have heard, or maybe you have not heard of what mitigation is. So mitigation is typically either you're going to lessen the harm by creating some safety buffers or moving people out the neighborhood. You're going to avoid the harm by not doing it at all, right? And think